Today we're going to dive into some incredible work from Mira Katsenos to really understand one of the most powerful human experiences there is, abandonment. Because here's the thing, being left is so much more than just a loss. It's a wound that can end up shaping our entire lives, a lot of times in ways we can't even see.
So let's just start with that big question right there. What if being left isn't just about losing a person you cared about? What if it's actually about losing the world you thought you knew? The idea we're exploring is that this is a much deeper, way more disorienting experience than most of us give it credit for. Wow. Okay, this quote, it really gets right to the heart of it all. It says, we are wired for connection. It's not just a nice to have, it's a biological need, right down to our bones. So when that wire gets cut, it's not just a sad feeling. Our body, our actual physical body, registers it as a legitimate threat, like a predator is chasing us. It's that serious.
Okay, so let's dig into this first big idea, how abandonment is fundamentally different from other kinds of loss. Because it's not just about an empty chair at the table. It's about the entire house feeling like it's about to fall down.
Think about it like this. The people who are truly important to us, they aren't just in our world, they actually help build the thing. They become part of our meaning structure. You know, all those unspoken rules and assumptions that make reality feel solid and predictable.
And here's where we see the critical difference. With a regular loss, the world might feel awful, tragic, but it still makes a kind of sense. The rules of reality still apply. But with abandonment, the rules themselves feel like a lie. The whole structure of your world just collapses because something you counted on as real, as fundamental, is suddenly shown to be completely false.
And that leads to what is maybe the most agonizing part of it all, this retroactive revision. You're forced to go back through all your memories, every single one, and re-examine them. Was any of it real? Was that love, that promise? Was it ever what I thought it was? It is an absolutely maddening place to be stuck in.
So, this intense fear of being left, where does it even come from? Well, for a lot of us, the blueprint for it was laid down way back in childhood, long before we even knew what words were.
This brings us to this really fascinating concept called an organizing belief. It's basically a core lesson we learn as a kid that doesn't even feel like a belief. It just feels like reality, like gravity. And that foundational truth ends up becoming the lens through which we see everything, and I mean everything, that happens to us later in life.
And you know, this belief usually isn't formed by some big, obvious trauma. It's often the quieter, more subtle forms of abandonment. It's the parent who's in the room, but totally checked out emotionally, or the parent who's super loving one day and ice cold the next. It's these little moments that teach a powerful, unspoken lesson.
And this is the lesson. This one devastating belief gets hardwired into a child's system. I am not enough to make them stay. It's not really a thought, it's a feeling, a bodily conviction that becomes the absolute bedrock of who you think you are.
Which brings us right to the body. Because these early wounds, they're not just stories in your head. They are literally stored in the architecture of your nervous system. They become a physical part of you.
And what's so crucial to get here is that these patterns don't mean you're flawed or broken or too much. They're actually incredibly intelligent survival responses. Your body literally adapted to protect you from ever feeling that kind of devastation again. That memory is physically written into your cells.
And these survival responses tend to show up in three main ways. There's hypervigilance, you're always scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble. Then there's collapse, this kind of preemptive shutdown, where you just give up hope to avoid the pain. And then there's oscillation, that painful, confusing dance between desperately clinging to someone and then pushing them away to protect yourself.
And this is exactly why you can't just think your way out of it. See, the understanding part, that's your smart, logical brain. But the reaction, that panic, that freeze, that's happening in a much older, faster, more primitive part of your brain. It's a part that runs on pure instinct, not logic.
So, if this wound is this deep, and it's literally wired into our bodies, what in the world can we do about it? Well, the path forward isn't about changing other people. It's about returning to yourself.
And this leads us to this really powerful paradox. In our frantic attempt to not be abandoned by other people, we end up abandoning ourselves. We leave our own needs behind. We silence our own truths. We bury our real feelings, all in the hope that if we're just easy enough, just agreeable enough, people will stay.
Does any of this sound familiar? People-pleasing, hating conflict, never ever asking for what you really need. These are the classic, everyday signs of self-abandonment. We do it to keep the connection, but the tragic irony is that the person in that connection isn't even really us anymore.
The way back isn't some giant, terrifying leap. It's actually a series of really small, really brave steps. First, it's just about noticing, without judgment, just witnessing. Oh, look at that, I'm doing that thing again. Then you can gently ask a question. What would the non-abandoning response be here? And finally, you just experiment. You take a tiny risk. You say one true thing, you ask for one small thing you need, and you just see what happens.
So after all of this, all the analysis, the pain, the fear, it really does come down to this one simple, powerful thing. You will never, ever be able to control whether other people stay or go. You just can't. But what you can do is choose, in this moment and the next, to stay with yourself. And that single choice, well, that changes everything.